It is Midweek Extra. We are in association with Green King Sports. Huge thanks to them for partnering with us at the moment for this show. Loads of reasons to follow them on Instagram, not least Rob Gutmann, me, this week on Green King Sport Instagram, predicting Liverpool 2, Real Madrid 0. And that is exactly what happened. So there you are. If you don't believe me, give them a follow on Instagram. Great reason to. Green King Sports.
Did you lump on
Check
that
it out.
sport?
I did not. No. It's all just life is a game. And I love to play. For more than that, I've got Josh Williams looking like, why have I come here?
Every week, mate.
Should just do Neil shows. Josh Sexton, he's always my guy. Always there to talk about last night. I'll obviously look ahead to the huge Premier League game against Manchester City on Sunday. But Rob, they warmed up nicely and some last night. They were terrific, I thought.
Yeah. Performance and result that pins Europe back by its ears. Love saying that, love thinking that, and
I love it when it's true.
I love it when it's true. There's been a bit of sort of, but Real Madrid weren't much cop and had injuries. I'm just not having it. I was sitting there admiring them quite a bit in the first half whilst thinking we were playing really well and were better. I thought, Camavinga's a joy to watch, and there's the ability to pick a pass and be technically correct at all times in that side. I mean, you can't underestimate they are European champions for a reason. And although they were denuded of Vinicius Jr. and Rodrigo and, Militao, that's about it, isn't it, that we care about. We were without players. But, everyone from Madrid afterwards has been very sort of gracious and humble, quite frankly, from Bellingham to Ancelotti to any other white-topped person they put a microphone in front of.
There was a fellow in the pub who was very humble.
Was it? I've just seen a lot
George's Trad's mate. Yeah.
Oh, George Trad's mate, was he?
Yeah.
Your resident Madridista in the pub.
He's got friends in every port.
In every port, yeah. What a guy. But I saw a group of like 20 dishevelled-looking Madrid lads yomping up Bold Street this morning, thinking about their life choices. I was going to try and point them in the direction of the Georgian Quarter and show they can be... Anyway, that's a whole other subject for another day. I'll tell you what I enjoyed most about it, John, was, obviously it was a complete Liverpool performance, and, I was walking back to the car afterwards with Steve Graves, who I watched the game with, and we were sort of squabbling over who was man of the match. I thought that's a good sign when, there's a hell of a lot of candidates for that. For me, I thought the midfield was the man of the match. There, I've said it.
They are a good team, obviously, Josh, and Rob's right to point that out, and I'm glad he did early because they just keep the ball so well and they're so technically good. And I remember thinking, going into the injuries, and then basically everyone who plays for Real Madrid is a good footballer and is there for a reason, and how they kept the ball and how they used the ball, and that's what sort of worried me. I worried that a couple of times they're just going to sort of drag us around and then sort of create something. They were good on the break as well. And it's funny, there's been a stat knocking around saying Curtis Jones has got the best pass completion in the top 5 leagues, and I'm looking at that thinking, well, I don't think Rodgers should give the ball away for 7 years. So how? Do you know what I mean? He gets applauded off by the Liverpool support. They are really good. They took some beating, but luckily the Reds were capable of doing that.
Yeah, first half I thought we were quite good, but didn't get the lead. And then even when we got the lead, they win a penalty out of nothing. And I did think to myself at multiple different occasions during the night, Real Madrid just find a way, don't they? But this felt like one of them where you move past it. Finally, and you get over that hoodoo and you kind of kill the beast with 3 arrows at the end of the day and move on. But I thought the performance was brilliant, and I agree with Rob as well. I think the midfield was outstanding. Literally take your pick. I think you can highlight one of them, and the fella next to you will be fuming because you're not highlighting the other one. Just a team of winners last night, and it's nice to know that we've turned the corner, because I think there was times where the game could have got away from us a little bit, but we just kind of slowed it down and remembered this new style a little bit, and I thought we were just brilliant to a man, really.
Yeah, how they stuck to the guns, or indeed their arrows, to use that lovely analogy, was really sort of nice to see. Josh, I thought it was a really calm performance and a really sort of measured, and we didn't get the goal like Josh said when we were on top, but they came out second half and sort of went again. McAllister's just so cool with his finish. He's just like, oh, this is what we do. You might have lost to Real Madrid. I haven't, lad. Watch this. And it's sort of brilliant. Even the second goal is just so sort of simple. And, they just played their own game last night, and the Real Madrid thing can get in your head a little bit, and everything. The crowd is obviously great, but also it can mean you maybe rush a little bit. But they weren't frantic at all last night. It was controlled aggression and controlled force, and it was great to see.
Yeah, and I think the crowd is a key point that you make within that, because it's dead easy for Liverpool to be up when the Anfield crowd is up, but like I had a worry when I went down onto the concourse half time, as Josh said, when we hadn't got the goal, that you come out second half and how wily this Real Madrid side are, and they showed loads of it first half as well. Like, they are just experts in the dark arts, aren't they? Like, any little touch and there's a lad going down, like anything they can do to get in the referee's head, and the referee was dead keen to control the game with cards as well, which I always think is just like the worst thing to be in the ground and witness live, because the minute that basically anything happens, then everything becomes a card, and it felt like Madrid got a grip of that probably better than Liverpool did in those sort of early throws. And then going into the second half, I was worried that the atmosphere might dip a bit, and that Liverpool might then almost respond with that by just not feeling as sort of 10 feet tall as you are when the atmosphere is up. But that's where I think the calm and composure of Slot does come in. I think we don't want to do the Jurgen Klopp versus Arne Slot comparisons forever, but I think Liverpool sides in the past were a bit too easily discouraged when the atmosphere did drop a little bit in these sort of big games. Whereas I think what you saw last night was, it's sort of embodied by Alexis McAllister with the finish, but also I think embodied by, the lads have mentioned the midfield already, but Curtis Jones and Gravenberch. Like, Gravenberch gets booked pretty early on in the game, and I was a little bit worried because he makes two sort of almost like professional tackles after that, where I'm a bit like if the referee is booking everyone for everything, then you might just get another sort of lazy one here if he's not careful. But the composure that he shows to keep playing his own game and to not let that dip to any extent. Jones sort of being confident on the ball, and Slot again had mentioned earlier in the season that Jones can sometimes be so confident that he thinks he's like the only man on the pitch who can do anything with the ball, and that's why he keeps hold of it for a bit too long. But I think you see last night he can do so much with it and cause so many problems for teams as well. And then Alexis McAllister with the finish, I loved. I don't know if where you were sat in the ground, so what your view of it was, but he gives it the absolute big one to the Kop after he scored as well. So it feels like it's a team that can really ride with the atmosphere when it's at its best, but also then when the atmosphere dips, they're wary of how to get the crowd back into the game, but then also how to just ride out those moments and almost suffer a little bit while the crowd is sort of being a bit more silent.
Yeah, there's a couple of big tackles that got the crowd going, or at least sort of Conor Bradley's. Earlier in the week, I did a bit of pre-match stuff. The problem with putting everything out for free is it's all out there. And me and Phil Blundell. Well, Phil Blundell talked me into starting Joe Gomez. But how wrong was he? Shut up, Phil. Last time I let him talk me into anything.
He'd have dropped Kevin Kelleher for Jaros. He's been fighting the internet about Kelleher all week.
Well, Kelleher can fight anyone, but those guys, the performances we got from, not just the top players, but the ones who, might have sort of less than 50 games, for Liverpool, and were phenomenal, and they were elite level performances on the very highest stage.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about the products of our academy, really, aren't we? That was Connor's first start in the Champions League, wasn't it? I think Conor Bradley. Yeah, I think it was his first start in the Champions League. He was exceptional. I mean, it feels cruel kick in the pants that he limped off, and I just hope it was more cramp than hamstring. Obviously mentioned his hamstring, but he was outstanding. I mean, I think he should have had a goal. That header, I'd still like to see what the XG was. I was outraged that nobody around me wasn't as outraged that he hadn't scored that, because he ghosted into a brilliant.
I thought you were going to say he was outraged no one else had the XG at the time.
I love the idea of you being outraged by other people's lack of outrage.
Well, it's my world, mate. I'm sat there on the Kop thinking, what can I see on that?
XG out. He's got to score there, lads. It was an XG outrage of 0.9, I would say. But he was brilliant from start to finish. I mean, obviously, the thing you can say about the tackle, not just that it was a Gerrard-esque, classic, vintage, golden era, manly tackle, it got the crowd going in the most time-honoured way, in the way that, apocryphally, Bill Shankly used to tell Tommy Smith to go through on someone back in the days when you could do that tackle and it'd be a foul as well. You know what I mean? But it did. It lifted the crowd. Also, we were flat, but I thought there's no doubt that Ancelotti's preparations for the game would be like so many European managers would be, don't give that crowd anything. Don't give them anything. Pass it about a bit. Keep the ball. Don't give them any reason. And Mbappe, whatever you do, don't go on a 20-yard sprint that Conor Bradley might end up taking the ball off you for. He didn't legislate for that. So, yeah, he was incredible. Queeve is just getting better and better. I was thinking, I mean, we're bringing in this giant Georgian Mamardashvili next summer, and I'm kind of thinking, why? What does he do? If he's there to sort of like, because we're thinking of edging out, you know, our holy goalie, the best keeper in the world, we're thinking of edging him out in the near future. Well, then, is there none better than Queeve Kelleher? I don't know. I know it's a discussion for another day, but his level is just very, very high at the moment. I think people don't quite... Obviously, it's a cliche now. People don't quite trust him because he just doesn't look like a keeper. He just looks too slender and pasty, quite frankly.
A bit too calm.
Too angelic. But he just does. But there's just no arguing with him at the moment. And Curtis Jones, again, I've lost track of Curtis Jones' age. Is he 29 or 21? It's one of the two anyway, but it feels like he's been around forever. He's absolutely superb. You're seeing... What I love seeing is when Curtis gets a run, and he's been so unlucky in his Liverpool career, it's nearly always injury has stopped him getting a run. And when he gets a run, you see the confidence, the effect of the confidence. You sometimes see that academy player coming back, the sort of more... I'm the best player in the team, Curtis Jones, which, you know, down the years, I don't think most Liverpool fans who haven't watched the academy games would ever appreciate that he was like back in the day. And me and you have discussed it a lot. I like in the games, there were times in that game yesterday where it's quite attack v defence, wasn't it? They were very low, Real Madrid. It was a real low block. And our opening goal, he's involved in it, and the Connor and McAllister 1-2. But it's a masterclass in how you break down a low block, really, because it's very, very tight in there. But Curtis commits a couple of people. Connor makes a run which moves someone, and McAllister gains half a yard. But he's close enough to the goal. It shows how sometimes playing against a low block can be good. I think City... It was like... do you know what that goal was? I hate to say it. Like a vintage Man City goal, that. When you think, how the fuck have they got through that? They've picked a lock, and there's somebody like Haaland or Aguero on the end of it. But this time
it was a bit Bernardo Silva, the goal, wasn't it?
It really was.
You could see him scoring that, yeah.
Yeah, and it was, so, you know, your question was about the three young lads, but you can't stop sort of just going back to the team, yay for the team. We were just so good.
Yay for the team, Josh. Talk about whatever you like.
I think, you know, the Bradley tackle, obviously that was amazing, wasn't it? But there was a moment in like the first 5 or 10 where I felt set that, you know, where Mbappe's on the ball, taking as long as he needs, and Salah just robs him.
Yeah,
I felt that moment set the tone for the rest of the game now, because that's our star player really robbing their star player. And from then onwards, I felt we were just... even Bellingham said after it, like, we just wanted it more. Feels like a bit of a cliche line, but I think that's quite a big thing for a Real Madrid player to say. But I think it was visualising the performance and that, and
they needed those points.
Yeah. I think they one place above the relegation spots.
I'm not sure.
I think
like
they are,
that.
I think they're 2 points above it. And they've got Atalanta away next. So they should have wanted it more. I think going into it, Liverpool were in a healthy spot where, like, if we didn't win, you know, so be it. But we didn't play. Yeah, we didn't play like that. We played like we really needed to win the game and that. And part of me is a little bit... It want to be slightly negative. Part of me is a little bit concerned of how much energy we've just used, because it felt like a really emotional night for everyone on the pitch and in the stands and everything. And you've got to remember, it's only November, and we've got Man City next. So,
but we are a team that...
Newcastle are then Everton.
Yeah.
But you do watch us now, though, and you do... And I don't know it's because you don't want to believe that we're playing ourselves into a wall here, but you do see us resting on the ball a lot more now than it used to.
Yeah, well,
we used to.
In the first half, Slot wasn't too happy with it, and after the game he said about, like, all the opportunities they got was through us giving the ball away a bit cheaply or trying things when we shouldn't. And I think that was our problem last season, and that was maybe why under Klopp we had some issues with Real Madrid, because we would constantly try things and then as a result give them opportunities to kill us in transition and that. But I think this team was a bit more shrewd with how we use the ball, and, you know, accelerate the game when you're set and when you're ready to do it. And I think that's been the subtle tweak that Slot has enforced this season. That's just transformed us into I think at the moment we're the best team in the world.
I think that's where like the slot ball sort of moniker almost comes in, really, doesn't it? Like Rob, you mentioned about it looking similar to City, and I think people were a little bit sort of jarred in the summer by Slot sort of talking about that Pep Guardiola is one of his big influences. But I think you're seeing that now, and it's like an evolved, sort of more modern version of Pep Guardiola, which sounds ridiculous to say because City still win all the trophies, even though they don't look great at the moment. Like it does just feel like Liverpool have that real calm and composure, but then also know how to pick locks, know the moments when to take risks and not to take risks. And I think you're still seeing, like, you know, in certain games, like you could mention Southampton the weekend, where maybe there's certain players who at times are still falling into that like little bit of a panic mode or taking a risk when the reward is maybe not quite as high. But I think last night in particular, where I think Josh is maybe right in a sense to say that there was a lot of emotion expended, but also where I think like this team are just able to like adapt like mentally to this sort of challenge now is that whole like idea of balancing risk and reward, the idea of just waiting for the reward to open up, because, you know, all football teams are ultimately made up of just human beings who are bound to make a mistake at some point, aren't they, or leave you a little gap here and there. And that's where I think you're almost looking at like a dead like analytical football team now, like any combination of 11 lads that you put on a football pitch and look at their opposite number, and like even at Kelleher last night, like you sort of mentioned that the stature between you two there, like the physical stature of Kevin Kelleher, I was looking at him just sort of like dead-eyeing Mbappe as Mbappe stepped up for the penalty, and I just had a feeling he was going to save it.
I didn't think
like,
he was going to score.
I don't know. I thought I was just being clever, but I think everyone thought that.
It's bizarre, isn't it? Because like I remember watching Kelleher in a Liverpool goal years ago and being like, he looks like a child in between the sticks. But now, even without necessarily growing so much in physical stature, I don't think, like, he looks just like he's 10 feet tall. All these players look like they're 10 feet tall, and that I think it speaks the most to how far along already in this adaptation. Like we can all keep saying it's only November, it's only December, whatever, but we are right where we need to be in terms of the adaptation of you know, getting used to a slot system.
It's 19 games, is it now? We've played all comps. 19?
Yeah.
17 wins.
117, yeah.
19's half a league season. I know in league terms, I'm looking at, you know.
I think lately, mate, honestly, we were absolutely smashed by Leverkusen. You know, the RB Leipzig, AC Milan.
It's a body of work.
It's getting to a point now where you're a little bit stupid if you're starting to suggest that we haven't done it yet, or we haven't faced anyone good yet.
I said on Talking Reds yesterday, it was a group of death. Everyone was saying it was a group of death, and we're 5 from 5.
I mean, we've got to play Man City. We've got to beat Man City. But even if we don't, one simple fact doesn't change really. At the moment, we're better than them. And I mean, okay, they could go there and give a masterclass and roll the years back. But even then, they'll go, okay, still got 5-point leads on you, motherfuckers. You know what I mean? So we'll bring it.
That'll be our official statement afterwards.
Yeah, it'll be the official club statement.
Corner flag picture.
Give me the card over
So, you know, that's the sort of the fortress we've built within a season, you know? Scale that. I mean, okay, I'm looking over the shoulder at City, at Arsenal a bit now, and they're 9-point deficit to us, but still, you know, you look at, you kind of think, where's the challenge? I noticed that the betting had changed radically from yesterday morning for the Champions League for Liverpool. Did you see that? We were, I think, 5th or 6th in the betting yesterday morning, now first. Straight away. I mean, I think I think it's because we combined beating the champions of Europe with also putting in a statement performance.
Yeah.
Pin the bookies back by their ears, Rob.
Pin the bookies back by their ears. They went, Jesus Christ. Everyone's going to lump on the Reds. We've got to change this quickly. I like to do a calculation when things are going well in a season, which is look at our odds for the league title and for the European Cup. And look at what are the odds that we get at least one of them? Because any season where you get either of those is one of the best years of your young life, right? Isn't it? Right? That's how I used to think about it as a kid. Don't care what we win as long as we win one of them. Yeah. Right? So the odds now, and you won't find it anywhere, you have to do the math, right? The odds now that Liverpool win either one of the European Cup or the league are 64%. Well, I'm off doing the Betfair odds, I worked it out, 64%. That's pretty fucking high. You know, for what? This early in a new manager's reign to be 64% to win one of the 2 biggest pots in the world.
It's my kind of podcast, this.
Hold on. We're all about the numbers,
Just don't ask me to work it out.
I'll tell you to work it out, because people do. I actually took me a while about 3 years ago, I remember asking me, how the fuck do you work out what are the odds of one or the other? It's a long story, but I'll tell you, but I'm right. You've got to work out. I'll tell you how you do it. You work out. You work, do you know what you do? You
It's a
work
motto
out.
for life. That.
You work out the odds. You work out the odds of you not winning either trophy. Multiply the two together. You come up with a percentage, and it's the opposite percentage.
I like the idea. Like every time Rob and Neil have an argument, and Neil's just fuming at Rob. Rob's like, "It's a long story, but I am right."
Okay, coming up in part
Good job,
three.
this is free.
Yeah, I was gonna say, coming up in part three, more of Rob being right. So that's to look forward to. But right now, you're going to get Neil Atkinson speaking to Dan Hewitt, a friend of the show and amazing journalist. He's got a new podcast called The Trapped, which sounds absolutely fantastic. Crucial work from Dan Hewitt as ever. Not just our West Brom fan, but an absolutely brilliant journalist doing amazing work. So this will be Neil speaking to Dan, and then we'll be back in the room looking ahead to Liverpool versus Man City.
Everything the Anfield Wrap does this week is free. Every show, audio or video, we are putting out so you can get a good taste of the flavour of the Anfield Wrap as this season heats up. Obviously we're doing that because we want you to subscribe, so if you've done that in the past and you're thinking about coming back to us, then now would be a great time. And if you have never done it before, then also think about it now as well. We're approaching December, it's the crunch time of the campaign. It is the Anfield Wrap, therefore your pre-match, during the match, post-match, we've got you covered. Enjoy the week.
Ian's in the studio somewhere else, but I'm joined by Dan Hewitt to talk about his podcast, The Trapped, which is available now from wherever you get your podcasts from. I've listened to the first episode. It's excellent. I've followed Dan's reporting on this issue. And having listened to the first episode, Dan, I actually want to start there for your personal aspect first and foremost, because it's striking to me as someone, and I've got to be careful here, but someone who can be deeply cynical about the wider state of Britain and its institutions. One of the things that's striking to me is that this is part of a process of you almost stepping back from that gossipy Westminster lobbying style reporting and instead dealing with what you yourself frame within the podcast as being a real and genuine crisis that speaks to something at the heart of this country.
Yeah, I think the housing crisis is one of those phrases that has become kind of so synonymous, you just kind of ignore it. And it's sort of, yeah, there's a housing crisis. What does that mean? And actually housing itself isn't particularly sexy, and it's an issue that's hugely underreported for numerous reasons, which I go into in The Trapped. But I think when I walked into a kind of council block in South London nearly 4 years ago and saw people living in conditions that would, I think, I'm convinced if they'd stayed there would have killed them, you start to see the consequences of decades of, I think, underreporting by the press, but more importantly, decades of, I think, negligence by successive governments and the state in the housing market. The state's retreat from housing, house building, house regulation, from the market, from providing fundamentally decent, safe, affordable homes for its own citizens. You see the human consequences of that. I stood outside a tower block in South London and just realised that there are millions of people in this country who have been badly let down. And the journey that I went on from that day it unfolds in the podcast, but you could probably hear in my voice now, it's a kind of a sort of very small glimpse of the anger I felt that day and have continued to feel ever since, really.
I think it is that idea. So, one of the reasons why I found the episode fascinating is that you are given little insights into literally how your job operates. So you did not go that day to start an investigation. No one sat down in a newsroom and went, right, this is the big plan. This is the big thing we're going to do. It's fascinating because it is organic. You're actually frustrated. You detail your frustration in that first episode that actually it wasn't enough what you actually did on that first date for them to run with it the way in which you wanted it to be ran with. You're genuinely, Imogen puts over that you obviously had a palpable level of fury about that was, you were just not having it, but then had to address that problem. But it's striking, isn't it? People would think, well, did you sit down and do this? Was this a grand plan? So much of what this story is about across all the podcast episodes and the reporting you've been doing for ITN has been almost an organic process. One thing's led to the other, led to the other, and your own engagement has also done that.
That's right. I mean, we stumbled upon this really. I mentioned this in the first episode. I was a political correspondent for many years working in Westminster. Your description of it earlier was kind of gossipy, tit for tat. It's a pretty good description of the life I had led for a number of years, and found it frankly quite frustrating, at times infuriating. And I was desperate to get out of Westminster. This is March 2021. It's kind of COVID, and I wanted to go and see what real people were living during the pandemic. And we got a tip off there was some poor housing conditions in South London. I've been looking at the housing crisis a little bit in my spare time, and we went down there, and I thought we'd find some people living in some poor flats. We'd do a news report, and that would be it. And instead, what we found was, I say, squalid, dangerous conditions that you would not leave an animal in. I mean, the challenge for the podcast was to try and to describe what I saw, what I felt, what I smelt on that day. And you're right. What happened after that was we put the report out on News at 10, and we had this avalanche of emails and messages. Now, in my game, you often hear journalists say, we had an amazing response to our episode, or our amazing response to our report, and often it's bollocks, really. There's a few messages. This was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails, and the vast majority were social housing tenants across the country saying, that's my life. I live in a flat. I live in a house like that. I'm living in temporary accommodation like that. No one cares. I'm telling everyone. I'm telling my council. I'm telling my landlord. I've written to my MP. I've posted it online. No one cares. And ITV News suddenly were holding a mirror up to their lives and saying, this is not acceptable. And so we did another report, and we got more emails, and another report, and it kept going and going. And every time we felt we saw the worst housing conditions, or we saw people living in conditions you wouldn't believe, it would somehow get worse. And the podcast kind of documents not just the quality of the conditions we were finding, but we go deeper to find out, well, what's going on here. We're in a civilized society in the sixth richest country in the world. How have we ended up in a situation where people are being housed or not housed like this? And so it was an organic process. There's lots of interesting conversations right now about the media and how newsrooms work, and mainstream media or legacy media works. And often it's surrounded by conspiracy. Often it's cock up over conspiracy, but often it's stumbling upon things, and you kind of run with your instincts. And this is what this podcast was all about, really.
And that idea of when you're saying no one cares, people come back to you saying no one cares and no one's listening. This idea, I think, again, that it's ITN, it's News at 10, it's ITV, it's slap bang therefore in the centre of what everyone, at the very least, has access to in a televisual sense. So you being able to give voice to that, to do that within the podcast. But let's be clear, there's a mirror to that idea. You were able to give voice to it because quite literally no one had for so long. And that, must be firstly infuriating for you, but even more infuriating for the people who do not get voice given to them. And that's what the heart of this podcast and the investigation that you've done is ultimately about. This is at least some voice for the people who weren't given it for far too long.
Yeah, it's probably the sort of proudest part of this investigation, this work. It has been able to give a voice to people that don't have one. I think also it gives a glimpse, I think, into a world, what this country is really like to live in if you're poor. If you're on low incomes, if you're black, if you're from a minority ethnic background, if you're working class, if you don't fit in. And it's a world. What we found is the majority of people we met are working. They're paying to live. They're paying for their poverty. They're paying to live in squalor. And we talk in the podcast, and we do delve into a little bit of history on how we got here, and we talk about right to buy and how we've ended up in a situation where we've got so few affordable homes, or we've got this chronic shortage. But it all leads ultimately to the conclusion. I think this podcast, this investigation, really is about power. It's about who has power and who doesn't have power, who gets listened to, who doesn't, who gets the benefit of the doubt and who doesn't. And it took, in lots of examples, it took ITV News, it took us to intervene to help people who've been told for many months, there's nothing we can do about it. And then suddenly ITV News reports on it, and suddenly they're in a new place or a new flat. And you start to think, well, actually, that's a perfect example of inequality. Someone's voice counts more than someone else's. And so if you want to get angry about,
you feel like that's good. You feel like that, you're the journalism is successful. That's working, but it's simultaneously the thing that infuriates you and the people involved and the people who have to live this life even more. Like, if anything, it makes it worse in a really funny way, because it just turns into, so things can be done. If the right person asks the question, things can be done.
Yeah, I say in the podcast, it's and we interview. If you want to listen to Michael Gove a few times, you can. But if you want to hear Michael Gove being challenged in a way that I don't think he has been before, we really do give him both barrels. And to be fair to me, he does front up a few times, as do other government ministers and the current new Labour Housing Secretary Angela Rayner. But I think it's that sense for me of like, we discovered that quite quickly that that shame was a kind of currency that people in positions of power dealt in, and shame was a very powerful currency. And when we were putting people's reputations on the line, suddenly things would start to move quite quickly. That said, the wider context is there are still not enough homes, and there are still not enough decent homes, and that's by design. I think as a country we've got ourselves into such a mess when it comes to housing that it's going to take so much to fix it. And for what it's worth, and I mentioned this in the podcast, I don't right now see that the ambition. Yeah. And the scale of the problem being addressed with big enough thinking, and this podcast lays out the human consequences of that.
It does indeed. It's absolutely brilliant. I've listened to the first episode, listened to the trailer, followed Dan's reporting across these last few years, and I'm sure many of you listening have as well. So it's available from wherever you get podcasts from. It genuinely is. I'm listening to it on Spotify, but you might go somewhere else. It is called The Trapped. It is published by ITV News all the way through, and it is a good example of the power of precisely what something like ITV can do. It's great that Dan's obviously been at the heart of it, and it's good that he contributes to us and talks about West Bromwich Albion from time to time, who currently sit a relatively healthy sixth in the Championship. We'll get him on to talk about that again soon, but do check out The Trapped if you've got the opportunity to do so.
Subscribe to the Anfield Wrap. We've enjoyed doing this free week for you, and hopefully you've enjoyed the shows as well, but you can subscribe through a platform of your choice. There's through our app, but there's also through Patreon for audio and video. Video only on YouTube and audio only on Spotify. Whichever way you fancy coming and joining us, then please do consider doing so. Subscribe today. Enjoy the rest of the season with us.
Thanks a lot to Neil, and of course to Dan. Do check out that new podcast. Just to wrap up a few things from part one, Henry, who's sitting in, has reliably informed us that the XG on Bradley's header was 0.33, isn't it? Yeah, that's how it works. So there we are. So he 1 in 3 of them, you should sort of score. So outrage levels, medium, we're saying, but of course, Rob is right. Curtis Jones is 23 years old, everyone, 24 in January. So there we are.
Some smart ass going to tell me my odds for Liverpool winning one of the European Cup and League were wrong as well.
No, I wouldn't dream of it. Because you said
God.
Very matter of factly you were right on that, so I'm going to go there.
I'll show my working.
Real Madrid are 24th in this league, so the bottom of the qualifiers, sort of sneaking through, 2 points ahead of PSG, who were in a lot of trouble. And I noticed as well, Leipzig have lost all 5 games. So there you go. That's interesting, isn't it?
Are they flying high in the Bundesliga? Are they second or something? They were when we played.
I know Dortmund are doing well in the Champions League, but not in the Bundesliga.
Yeah, maybe they've swapped.
Yeah,
you've said you do this and we'll do that. Take it in turns.
Fly the flag.
Okay, there we go. Just wanted to mention one other thing as well. Everything is out for free at the moment. We do hope you come and subscribe if you are enjoying it. There's also, if you want to gift someone a subscription, and disclaimer, it can be yourself. We can get gift subscriptions on theanfieldwrap.com/shop. Tomorrow only on Black Friday, we're doing 25% off all gift subscriptions. We don't really like doing anything off subscriptions, to be honest with you, because we think it is excellent value for money as it is. But we've been caught up in the Black Friday storm. So for one day only, don't message on Saturday. It'll be too late. Forget about it. Don't even bother.
Black Friday a month now.
Well, it is, yeah. But for us, it's one day. We're old school. Like a stag do the night before a wedding.
Absolutely.
Where Black Friday is one day.
Except it's you sat there on Saturday fulfilling subscriptions.
Remember those days? Oh, I've done them Christmas Day morning. Oh, Lord, I love that. Anyway, just stop distracting me. I'm trying to sell. 25% off gift subscriptions, one day only. It is Friday from midnight to midnight, I would guess. 25% off all those. theanfieldwrap.com/shop. Loads of merch and stuff on there as well if you want to look for other Christmas presents for anyone else or indeed yourself. Okay, Man City, how are you feeling about it? They're rubbish, but are they?
Yeah, genuinely, yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. to be fair, against Feyenoord, they were pretty good for 75 minutes and then just out of nowhere shot themselves in the foot 3 times, which takes some doing. But they looked really nervous and really fragile, and that's unlike Manchester City, obviously. But I think you could tell in that little 15-minute period that all of their current form, media stuff is getting to them because they just bottled it. Honestly, they did bottle it. Like, Ederson was a mess. Guardiola was just giving the ball away, and Jack Grealish was taking quick free kicks with a lead with like 2 minutes to go in the game.
Just excited to play, I think.
Yeah. De Bruyne was hitting crosses into the box again with the lead, so they were all over the place. But I said on the weekend, the weekend show that we did with Neil, that like I don't think this is a little bad patch. I don't think this is unlucky. I think this is genuinely them at the moment. Like, if we're speaking about XG a little bit more today, aren't we? They've given away shots worth about 2 expected goals in 5 games in a row now. That just suggests your defence is bad. That's not like and they've had no red cards in there. They're not giving away too many penalties, I think, off the top of my head. They just keep conceding tap-ins, basically. And they've got Liverpool at Anfield on the weekend. Liverpool keep steamrolling teams, and have just steamrolled the champions of Europe. So I don't want to jinx anything, but I am confident going into this game, and I just don't see how City can keep us out. And if we can keep Haaland quiet, nobody else scores goals for them, apart from fullbacks. So I am confident, but
and you'd pick Guardiola every day of the week, wouldn't you?
Yeah. But I'm a fan of the player, but
no, I mean for us, just to play against.
Yeah. I think he looks vulnerable at the minute, and he's up against Salah probably.
Can we get Ben Doak back for this?
Yeah, it's a good show, yeah.
I'll just explain that to Mo. They do look vulnerable. I think Josh's point on them looking good in games as well is fair and right, because, you know, every time I've seen them, and let's face it, we watch a lot of them, don't we? Because that's also how the weekends tend to work. You watch City, you watch Arsenal, and you watch whoever's beating Everton. But you know, when you do watch them, they're good. They've been good in almost every game I've seen them for a bit, but it's when they're not, it really sort of goes off. So I guess what I'm starting is, if they have a good period, or if you start well on Sunday, we just all need to keep our cool. But luckily, this team are really good at that.
Well, I think like Josh makes a good point there, that it seems to be a mental thing for them at the moment, and I think like you're seeing that a little bit in the reflection of the manager and his sort of, you know, episode, if you want to call it that, after the final game the other night. And like, I think Guardiola is the absolute king of drawing the attention onto himself to take it off his team at the moment. But I think if you asked him and sort of got him on a really candid level, he would be worried about the mentality of his team right now, because, you know, City are always going to be a team who have all the sort of technical capability in the world, and it's muscle memory for so many of those players. Now, I guess the one concern, if you're a City fan, would be that there's, you know, a couple of lads who are maybe sort of newer to the team, or just a bit less experienced in general. Like, I watched Rico Lewis defending for the third goal against Feyenoord the other night, and it basically, like, at the moment that ball came into the box, Rico Lewis thought it was going to be a goal. It was like that level of you know, mental fragility, as I say, and that's, I guess, where that becomes a big style clash for Liverpool. Is that Liverpool are also a team who heavily believe technically in what they're doing at the moment. I mentioned about them sort of, you know, arriving to the party of this sort of slot ball situation now, but also like the main thing you can say about Liverpool at the moment is their like the mental fortitude is out of this world. I think that is what makes Liverpool right now the best team in world football, is that, you know, technically they are matching up with what they're able to do mentally, and the idea of like doing that in front of Anfield with that whole, you know, basically 60,000 like weirdos on your side, willing you on is it's going to be a bit of a recipe disaster potentially for City at the moment. I think the one thing where I'm probably getting a little bit worried to an extent is that we've seen City sides turn up at Anfield in the past and just show Liverpool the utmost respect and basically like stop it being a game of football in that sense, because they are showing Liverpool so much respect. And that's where maybe like my sort of PTSD almost of playing City in the past and having title race against City in the past is that they might just come and do that, but then I sort of almost swing back to like my faith in this team at the moment, and my faith in this team to just get the job done, and my faith in the crowd to rise to the occasion as well. And I just can't wait to get in that ground on Sunday. I'm honestly like I'd pack in all the days in between now just to
maybe
just
that's
to
why they
fast
brought
forward
the press conference forward, because
Yeah.
they're going to announce at the press conference the game's tomorrow.
I'd enjoy that.
Oh, Friday night. Oh, Rob, come on. Come with me. Literally.
Well, we're odds on for this one, which I don't know if we've been odds on at home to City in living memory. Even in our pomp, I don't think we'd have been odds on in this sort of game. So yeah, only just, which tells a tale. The book is 55%, which means nobody should go, yeah, we're betting these, we're going to win these. I get confidence around it, but it's also a brilliant opportunity for them to reset. As Josh says, their game plan sorted for them, and that's to be compact and hard to play against. But by the same token, you said who said that, or you, John, sorry, said they played well in every game in this run. You see that little spell of half an hour here and there. So what do they do? So he's a bit torn, I think, Guardiola, because you look at how he approached Tottenham. That's the fifth game in the run, the disaster run. But they start off really, really well. So he decides the way to treat their slump is to start fast and start early and to try and blow Tottenham out of the water. Now, if he tries to do that against Liverpool, I think it's going to be a lot harder, because we're much better at controlling a team from the off than Tottenham are, and then could really, really hurt them in transition. So I think he's got the horns of a dilemma in how to approach this. They do remind me a bit, and I think Neil might have referenced this on a show recently, of maybe it's wishful thinking of the decline, the big decline season of the great Dalglish, famous Barnes-Beardsley side.
Someone mentioned Chelsea's Mourinho on the radio the other day, and I thought that was quite an interesting comparison.
Right, when they fell away to a mid-table team overnight.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting pattern in the last season, the season that Dalglish ends up resigning sort of 2/3 of the way through, is that Liverpool team was still a force of nature on their day.
Top when he was resigned,
going forward, we could still score goals at will. But even the previous season, we'd won the league, but there were games where I think we lose the FA Cup semi-final. We looked a bit too porous at the back, and our best defenders, Mark Lawrenson had to all but retire. I think Alan Hansen was picking up injuries, and Gillespie, who was sort of like the third of that trio of options, was also picking up injuries. So you sort of, the impregnable side of us has gone. And this is what has definitely gone with City now, that they are not going to rebuild anytime soon, is the reputation that you're not going to... Man City will decide when you score against them, not the other way round. Teams have seen Man City are there to be got at, and time again. And that's going to take a while for them to rebuild, if they can, in the current season. And that's how I noticed that Liverpool decline. The head rotted from the bottom, if you like, from the back, whatever the metaphor is. They will be a danger. There's a chance they come to Anfield and score twice. Be 2-0 up at half time. That's quite possible. But they are there to be got at, and they're so vulnerable. Probably one of them, bottom half level in the league vulnerable.
In terms of the team that starts the game, let's assume Konate's fit, and let's assume that Bradley's okay as well. Is there anyone you're changing? There's obviously a couple of good players who come on for Liverpool. One of them scores. So they're sort of options. I would think, again, if it's with no injuries, if there is no injuries, it's probably 11 from 13. But you might want to throw someone sort of else in there. What do you think in terms of team selection?
No, I think if it was me, I think if everyone's okay, I'd go again. I think.
Would you?
Yeah, with exactly the same team. Obviously, I've got no.
I think Darwin did all right. He sort of divided opinion as he always does last night, but I think he did okay.
No, I think he does all right. Yeah, I think
it was great first half.
I think on another night he scores 2 there.
Yeah,
and I think the one that Courtois was brilliant, by the way, really good goalkeeper. And I think the one he gets really low for early on, despite being like 6'7" or something, That ordinarily, that's a decent finish, I think.
Yeah, he does really well from that angle.
Sometimes that goes in, and I think I just don't know the fitness of Jota or Trent or Alisson. If any of those three come in, I don't think you can be too bothered. But
no chance for Jota or Alisson, I can tell you as a fact.
Yeah,
Trent was on the bench.
That's what I'd expect, yeah. So if everyone's fit, I'd go again. But I think obviously the big question marks are Kanate and Bradley.
I think the manager would 100% agree if everyone's fit.
I think the only question mark, actually, like form-wise or whatever, or performance-wise, is the bench Szoboszlai again. But the midfield was just too good against Real Madrid. Like, Szoboszlai scored the last time he started, but he comes out the team for Real Madrid potentially as a rest for City. But I think, given how the three played against Madrid, you've got to go again with that.
I think there's a scenario here as well where Slot can almost learn from the mistakes that Klopp made in the past when we've had those sort of injury-ridden seasons. Is that you can try and rush lads back who are maybe a bit out of sort of rhythm, and like Trent. I was going to say Alisson, but goalkeepers are different, aren't they? But Trent exactly. Trent and Jota in particular. But then. You're doing that to rest the lads who are already sort of in the red, and you're not pushing them into the red any further, but then you bring in lads who've not yet got back up to the green and putting them into the red, and suddenly then you're dealing with a whole bank of footballers who are past their sort of stage of fatigue and aren't necessarily match sharp. So I think if you are Slot, you almost if the sports science lads say Bradley can have X amount of minutes here, Kanate can have X amount of minutes, then you look to sort of phase Trent in, because that's the other thing. He's not yet phased Trent into the team. Obviously, that's his first time back on the bench last night. Harvey Elliott's been an unused sub on the bench twice now as well. There's got to be a sort of plan to phase him back into things, and that can depend on the Szoboszlai and the general midfield situation. So I think the manager is working back towards his full complement of options, but I think it's a really fine line at this point that you tread if you are starting to bring back lads who just aren't quite ready, because there's a couple of lads who've taken a bit of one heavy knock. And listen, this was the week we were all looking at, and I think if the manager is sort of doing his press conference today in order to not give too much away for injuries, that says to me that the manager thinks this is the biggest game of the season. He's doing something completely different that he's not done before, a different tactic to make sure that he has one up on the opposition going into the game. So I can see a scenario where he's like, just if you can all give me 60 in this one, carrying the knocks from the other night, I promise you'll get your rest next week, because next week doesn't look the same when Liverpool are 11 points clear at the top of the league, and I know the next Champions League game's 2 weeks away, but basically home and hosed in that group stage now too.
I'm quite enjoying sort of playing last as well. I think there was the fun part of that Villa one was watching all the other results go our way, and obviously they don't always do that, but when they do, it really banters you into that. And Arsenal playing Saturday night, I think that's a trickier game than people are making out. After
2-2
in the international break, everyone was like, "Oh, Arsenal will win the next 5 or 6 now," and I thought the West Ham, you don't know what you're going to get with them, and then obviously they win. They get a good away win. Sort of last week. They're no mugs. They've got good footballers, and they'll be up for it. Listen, Arsenal, I'm sure will be favourites when Rob does check. But I think it is sort of a tricky one. And then them half ones. There's 3 games at half one, which have got the ability to get fans going, even if not necessarily crucial to a title race. And I quite like being the guys who then go on and go, yeah, you've watched all the rest, now here's the best.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, there's so many different mantras on this, like play first, put the pressure on, but I'd rather know what you've got to do. Just going back to what we think that Slot will do. It's funny to think about how a manager sets up a team, having been so conditioned by Jurgen Think for 9 years. If it was Jurgen and our intensity was our identity, you'd know after a game like Real Madrid that he had in his mind that you'd have to make 3 changes at least to rebuild that level of intensity into the next performance. But I think he'll want to go again. I have to say, looking at the kind of injuries, though, that come off, why would you take chances? That's the other thing. So I'd be very surprised. I mean, we don't know what type of injuries Kanate or Bradley have got, but I think he might be risk averse with going again on that one. And then it's difficult to know, do you throw Trent back in or do you go Joe Gomez? That's when it's going to get interesting, because Trent, he was keen to stress before the Real Madrid game. Trent's ready. Well, no, Trent's on the bench, but he's not ready.
He
Sorry,
could do a few minutes. He
could do
said,
a few
didn't
minutes
he?
if need be, and he decided.
He not very many.
He decided, despite a 2-0 lead and seeing the game out, to give him none. So I'd be very surprised if he thought just throw him back in. So I think if Connor doesn't make it, I think Joe Gomez will start. But the problem is if both don't make it, what happens then? Because I think if just Konate wasn't available, I think Gomez is in the box position, isn't he, to take Konate's place. But he can't have two Joe Gomez's on the pitch. So does he go, assuming both are out, and my money is that they will be, does he go Gomez, Trent Alexander-Arnold, or does he go Kwanzaa with Gomez right back? I think ahead of that, I don't think Dom Szoboszlai comes back in for this one, but I think he'd come back in for Newcastle, and I think he goes with that front three, although I think Diaz again, cameo as a central striker, very impressive. There might be a temptation, whether he's seen something in how City are setting up that he thinks, I wouldn't mind a bit of Gakpo left, Diaz centre, Salah right. So I don't know. He might want to spring a surprise on Pep on that one.
There's another mental battle here though around the team selection, isn't there? Like if you change and listen, it might be enforced in the end, and we can't we can't deal with that. But if you change the two lads who are in the team at the moment on the right hand side of the pitch, Erling Haaland's gonna be looking at that and thinking I can have some success there. I mean, especially if you're doing Gomez and Kwanzaa. Like I love Jarell Kwanzaa, but if I'm Erling Haaland, I'm relishing the idea of playing off Jarell Kwanzaa. Like the way he's played this season, the way the manager has come out and talked about is sort of inability to win all of his duels, which is is a fair criticism of a younger player, isn't it? Like he is gonna get there, and we all believe in Kwanzaa's potential. But I think if you're the manager, like I would probably be if both of them are forced changes, I think you're looking to try and get something out of Trent and have Gomez in the centre there rather than bringing Kwanzaa back in.
Yeah, I suspect that's the case as well. I think that's the one he plumps away. I mean, we just don't know how fit he considers Trent and what Trent's looking like in training. He's not been out for a huge amount of time, though, has he? I mean, It was the Villa game he limps off in, was it? So what's he been out of action?
I think it's 19 days, isn't it? I'm sure he said 18 days yesterday.
I think he's back in full training. What was it, the day before Real Madrid? But by Sunday it's 4 days. Maybe he'll think very differently about him. I don't know. What do you do though? Do you put Trent? If you bring Trent in, you've got to bring him in knowing you're not going to give him 90 minutes. You're looking like you might go 55, 60. So then what do you do? Flip Joe Gomez out wide and bring Kwanzaa in on the hour? It's a tough one. I really, really hope those boys aren't injured. But it just looked, I'd take them both being out for a game or two at this stage because it could be worse, and nobody should be naive about that.
Just on a general point, Josh, about how it feels at the moment, and I really like working here, and not just because I get to see you every day, Samson, but
part-timer.
Is one of the things I really like about sort of working here is that we're all part of, a Liverpool bubble, if you like, but I think you can really get a sense of when things are taking off a bit in other places here. And yesterday we had a Dutch camera crew sort of come in, and there's going to be a piece for anyone in Holland. Or if you've got a good VPN from Nord, you can enjoy that on Saturday. But they're talking about Arne Slot's impact in Liverpool, and obviously, he's understandably big news over there and sort of what he's doing. But you just sense, things like last night when Liverpool Real Madrid's the biggest tie in the competition, and a lot of journalists would have come up. Apparently, trying to get in the press box last night was a bit of a nightmare. I know a message from a Hungarian journalist saying how hard he was sort of finding it, and we are the biggest show in town at the moment, and I feel like when you are working here, you really sort of get a sense of that, because we're always eating, sleeping, breathing Liverpool Football Club as fans, us around the table, but you do get these little insights into when it's going a little bit bigger than that, and everyone's suddenly got their eyes on Liverpool. Absolutely,
and that's the thing. Like we all bounced into work today off the back of that. Like I think it's the first time like everyone's been in sort of like half an hour before work was meant to start.
We nearly had the 10 o'clock meeting, like quarter, yeah, because we were like, right, come on, and then we were like, oh shit, it's nowhere near 10 o'clock. It's like fucking everyone was
like
here.
Getting to school on non-uniform day. Like everyone was just buzzing to be there. Everyone had brought their pound in.
It was very quiet in the office this morning. I walked in, there's a load of everyone there.
I think we'd done all our best jokes by then, be fair.
had
Like,
you?
yeah,
I thought you had a big night out celebrating.
No,
Was like that when you were working hard?
We'd had a big hour and a half before you came in, so we'd already
Josh
done it.
crowd surfing.
But this is the thing, like you mentioned about Liverpool, being the story, and I think Liverpool as a city and a football club always is the story, because it's such a cultural hotspot in terms of the city, and the football club are always going to make headlines, and sometimes that can be for good reasons and bad reasons, and unfortunately we went through a summer there where Liverpool as a city was making headlines for the wrong reasons, everything around the riots and stuff. And what I love the most about working the Anfield Wrap and being so in touch with what's going on in the city is when the city responds to those occasions, and when there is a sort of party and a really good feeling in the city. And I think like the football team being good goes so hand in hand with what's happening culturally in this city as well. And like what I think it's one of the things that Jurgen Klopp gets probably the most credit for in his time at Liverpool is how much of a spiritual leader he became with his work with the football team, but how much of a party that then became in the city as well. Like how much Liverpool wanted to have a parade and throw all these amazing occasions to celebrate this football team. And it feels like without this manager even really consciously trying, that we're already back at that point. We're already back at that point where Liverpool are winning games of football, where we are having so much of a party on the pitch, and that's almost like spilling out into the city at wide now. Like I'm so excited to see what a Christmas looks like where Liverpool are acres and acres clear at the top of the league. I'm dying to see that. So I hope we fucking batter these at the weekend and I get to experience it.
I mean, we are going into this period where it could get even livelier, couldn't it? And Sunday's obviously a jetpack towards this lovely Christmas that Josh Sexton is so beautifully eulogised for us.
Yeah. I mean, this is my first year doing Substack, as like independence, and I remember speaking to Neil over like the summer and that about subscriptions generally, because I'm obviously on a subscription platform now, and I remember him saying like usually you see a bit of a dip in November because people at that point, you're not really at the start of the season, you're not going for the league yet,
saving for Christmas.
Yeah, Champions League's kind of like at the end of the group stage or whatever, and I've been anticipating that, but because of the month that we've had, City falling off a little bit, Liverpool facing Real Madrid and Bayer Leverkusen and all these sides and winning. I haven't seen it yet, so hopefully I'm not, touch wood here, but I think it just sums up that the start we've had to the season, the start we've had to Slot's tenure. I don't think anyone, even the people who expected it to go relatively well, I don't think we'd have expected, was it 19 games that we said before?
Yeah.
17 wins, and beating the likes of Real Madrid and 64% likely to win one of the two tournaments. So, this is what you want, isn't it? This is the big leagues.
Yeah, I've been on BBC 3 times this week. You can tell Josh Sexton's been on holiday. Honestly, they're doing me. But I always think that's a bit of a sense as well. People who just want to go like, what's going on at Liverpool? And they've all said, can you believe how well it's gone? And I've said, no, to be honest with you. Yeah. But we're here now, and we're in it to win it. And Gutmann's assured me it's a great chance of one or the other 64%. At least. So let's have it. And I think the City and the football club are good at that. They're a good, it changing to the situation, if you like, and if we can sense something is potentially might be on, we're all in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think nights like last night really do start convincing even the most sort of cynical of doubters, don't they? It's a tricky one because I feel the Klopp era, whilst it was laden with so much glory, a lot of that glory was within seasons that precursed ultimate disappointment. If I'm being brutally honest, but I'm not trying to throw a negative slant on this one. But there was, there's the two 90-point challenges for the title that don't end up in the title, albeit one of them we win the actual European Cup. So I'm not scoffing at the greatest season in our history in a way. But last season is very recent in the memory. We're 7 points from winning the title with it entirely in our hands, and it slips away. So I think over-celebrating it isn't a good thing to do. Culturally, I think it can bleed into complacency. The players are only human at the end of the day. We create too much sense of expectation and assumption around the season. I don't think that's healthy. I think The Liverpool way, if you want to call it that I grew up with, was to remain dignified, not to celebrate beforehand. I have felt a little bit that the culture of recent years was people talking about parades months before they were due to happen, and I don't actually like that. So maybe I'm being a bit of a Scrooge here on this one. I do like that people buy into it. I do like the fact that it gains momentum in the ground, that people bounce in, it creates that atmosphere. But I think it has to be measured with, okay, let's just take it one fucking game at a time to be an ass about it.
Well, when the one game is Man City at home, we can all take one game at a time. That is on Sunday. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you're enjoying this whole free week. We will be going right up till Sunday, so all the Man City previews will be all free, and then post-match after Man City on Sunday, audio and video will be out for free as well. Aren't you lucky? You should think about a free week on your Substack, mate. That would be,
I was thinking about Black Friday.
Close now, lad.
Yeah, don't forget the Black Friday deal on gift subscriptions, which is tomorrow. That is Friday only. And also huge thanks, like I said, to Green King Sports. Do consider watching one of the many football games, all of these sporting events this weekend at the Green King Sports pub. All you need to do is download the app. It'll tell you where your nearest one is, and you'll get 10% off drinks while there is live sports on the telly, which can't be bad. Thanks a lot to both Joshes and to Rob, for Sam for producing. Up the Reds. Massive Sunday.